The entire league has been in absolute turmoil ever since Zeke dropped those comments.
No one revealed this about Jordan, but I will.
Let's be real, if there's a single soul on this earth, Michael holds an eternal grudge against it is definitely Isiah Thomas.
There's no way you can convince me he wasn't there.
It is common knowledge that the bad blood between Thomas and Jordan runs deeper than the hardwood. However, right now, I'm going to lay out the gritty behind-the-curtain reality that is going to shake you. It starts with pure envy, how Isiah's resentment toward his Airness sparked a chain reaction, birthing the most legendary feud in history, and culminating in that infamous walk-off during the Eastern Conference Finals. Plus, just wait until I play the leaked tape that effectively banned Isiah from the Dream Team. This is going to mess with your head. You see, the war between Thomas and Jordan didn't begin when the cameras started rolling. It was brewing way earlier. Picture this: you are royalty in Detroit. The NBA is your turf. You have fought, bled, and clawed for every ounce of respect in your city. That was Zeke in the mid-'80s. The Motor City was his empire. Then comes the twist. A kid from North Carolina named Michael steps onto the scene, bringing a level of flair and hype the game had never witnessed, and the green-eyed monster woke up. Thomas built his legacy on grit. He wasn't the commercial darling. He was the general, the trench warrior, the man who made opponents dread coming to Detroit. Every squad knew that when the Pistons clocked in, it was a brawl, but that hardness. It was regional. It lived in the local dive bars and the factory floors. That blue-collar grind didn't cross borders. It didn't move merchandise, and it certainly didn't land you on the cover of Sports Illustrated. That was the void MJ stepped into. He ignited a dynasty in Chicago, and practically overnight, the NBA stopped caring about just pure skill. They wanted marketable icons. They wanted charisma. Jordan possessed all of it in spades, and just like that, Isiah's crown slipped. The hierarchy shifted, and the global spotlight fixated on Michael. For Zeke, that burn was deep. It wasn't simply about being outplayed on the court, it was about losing. His cultural grip and fading into the background. He planned on being the heir apparent to Larry Bird. Instead, Jordan arrived and redefined what a superstar looked like for the entire planet. Isiah earned his stripes in the mud, but suddenly respect required international fame. That paradigm shift didn't just require a different game. It required a logo. And who holds the title for the biggest brand in sports history? You already know the answer. To complicate matters, Isiah handled this transition poorly. During Jordan's debut All-Star weekend back in 1985, a massive moment for the rookie whispers circulated that Thomas rallied the key veteran heavyweights to orchestrate a freeze-out. They essentially refused to pass the rock to Mike deliberately, icing the kid out. Naturally, Thomas denied being the ringleader. He labeled the whole freeze-out narrative absurd, claiming he didn't have the seniority to command a conspiracy in a locker room filled with titans like Bird Dr. J and Moses Malone. However, when reporter Peter Vexi pressed Isiah, Vexi confessed he might have planted the story, but only because Isiah's own representative doctor, Charles Tucker, approached him during the break to brag that Zeke and the crew were shutting Jordan down. Isiah can spin it however he likes, but that is his own camp confirming the hit. From that second on, for MJ, this stopped being standard rookie initiation. It became a vendetta. Yet you have to ask, why, Project? Your insecurity about the league's direction? Onto a kid who was just happy to be there? We understand you used to be the alpha. You were undeniably hard-nosed, but in that era, toughness was losing its currency. The association was shifting gears. Under Commissioner David Stern, basketball was transforming from a game into a global commodity. Jordan was the poster boy for this revolution. He wasn't merely hooping, he was moving units. I mean, kicks apparel, ad spots, the posters, the entire ecosystem. He lifted the sport to such heights that upon his initial retirement in 1993, David Stern went on record saying this.
Thanks, Dan. David, obviously you said it was a happy day for you today, but well, tell me why you thought it was
it was a happy day for me. I said it was a great day for Michael because he's done extraordinary things for our game.
Think about the psychological toll believing the kingdom is yours only for the public to decide someone else fits the description of a monarch. And that usurper was a freshman bringing an intangible quality you couldn't manufacture, pure magnetism. Twist the knife further, Isiah was born and raised in Chicago, but played in Detroit. So when Mike arrived in the Windy City and started taking over, winning over the crowd and stealing the headlines. That was just the surface level stuff. This was about Michael Jordan walking in and claiming the throne right in front of them.
He still want to be Mike. Mike do not want to be your friend, Isiah. I'm telling you for the 5th time. He do not want to be your friend. You know, stay on ESPN, keep talking on TNT. Oh, Mike's just, you know, now you're trying to say everybody better than Mike. It's okay. You not better than Mike.
Strip away the armor and look past that Motor City swagger and you find terror. The terrifying realization that they were becoming obsolete. The dread of being erased from history. But deep down, it was envy. A toxic, festering resentment that refused to die. And that bitterness wasn't silent. It bled onto the hardwood, shaping the entire narrative of the decade. When Thomas's insecurity collided with Detroit's brute force philosophy, the result was savagery. The Pistons didn't just want to defend against Jordan, they fixated on him. They dissected his game, crafting a strategy designed with a single malicious purpose: total destruction. After Jordan torched them for 59 points back in April of 1988, the mood in Detroit shifted. Something fractured in that locker room. The conversation moved past containment. It became about survival. They decided they didn't just need to stop him, they needed to shatter him. Enter the Jordan rules. This wasn't standard defensive scheming, it was a declaration of martial law on the basketball court. A calculated assault was underway.
You guys had what they called the Jordan rules.
We came up with that saying with Jordan because this is what Chuck was saying. If Michael goes to the basket, put his ass on the ground. And I put his ass, because you know, once he up there, you know, you got to hit him. You got to hit him. I mean, every time he went to the basket, we hit him.
The game changed. Jordan wasn't just a ball handler anymore, he was a mark. A moving target for a sanctioned hit team. Their methodology was surgical and violent. As John Sally put it, the whole complex strategy could be summarized in 3 words: force him left.
You guys had something called the Jordan rule. Talk to us about that.
Push him left. That's your Jordan rule right there. That's all I'm allowed to give away.
It's still top secret.
Whenever number 23 caught the Rockwing top of the key, didn't matter the protocol activated. Send 2. Trap hard. Funnel him into the teeth of the defense. Jam the paint. Disrupt his cadence. And if he dared to penetrate, he had headhunters like Laimbeer and Rodman waiting to decapitate him. We're talking about malice. Flagrant shots that could end careers. They didn't view him as a competitor. They viewed him as an infection threatening their existence. The code was absolute nothing easy. No rhythm, no peace. Thomas and his bad boys were not looking for a win on the scoreboard. They wanted to break his spirit and his bones. But they made a fatal miscalculation. While Detroit was engineering a strategy built on hatred, Jordan just kept coming. He took the beatings, he took the humiliation, and he got back up. Night after night, he walked through the fire, absorbing the blows, the collapses, the cheap shots. His response wasn't to fold, it was to evolve. He hit the weight room, with a vengeance packing on steel, refining his arsenal. He adapted to the violence. By the time 1991 arrived, Chicago wasn't just a one-man show anymore. They were a juggernaut. They didn't just beat Detroit in the conference finals, they swept them out of the building. The road to the NBA finals was wide open. They dismantled the Lakers 4-1 to seize that first ring. But let's circle back to that Detroit series. Game 4. Chicago is dominating, up 115-94. There is 7.9 seconds on the clock. What does the captain, Isiah Thomas, do? Does he show sportsmanship to the squad that finally dethroned him? No, he orchestrates a walkout.
A great run has come to a close. With 4:38 remaining in this fourth quarter, and now Isiah runs out to center court.
No dap, no eye contact, just raw, unfiltered salt and ego on display. You can try to rationalize it, spin it however you want later, but in that moment, it defined him. You can show me all the excuses in the world. To their credit, guys like Joe DeMars and John Sally did the right thing. They stayed. They shook hands. But Isiah, his exit, hijacked the narrative. It proved this was never just business. It was deeply personal. Now, sure, maybe he felt justified. In his head, he is thinking about Jordan calling them undeserving champions the day before. But let's cut the crap. After years of physical abuse, after the Jordan rules tried to end his career, Mike had every right to talk his trash. The backlash was immediate and severe. The press roasted them. Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen didn't mince words, labeling the stunt pathetic and classless. Jordan. He barely acknowledged it. But Isiah, he has been carrying that baggage for 30 years trying to revise the history books. For Mike, though, it was just more high-octane gasoline. If you know anything about the legend of Jordan, you know the truth, every cheap shot, every snub, every drop of bad blood from Detroit didn't weaken him. It forged him. It pushed him directly onto the throne he was born to occupy. And that seat at the top. That is exactly what Isiah Thomas. It didn't sit right. Think about it. He throws an entire roster at a single guy, and that guy still ascends to the throne as the undisputed king of the hardwood. And to add insult to injury, Isiah Thomas hasn't exactly been subtle about how deeply Michael Jordan rattled his cage. Long after the Bad Boys era turned to dust, Thomas kept running his mouth about Jordan like a jealous schoolyard rival who got picked last. You need to see this footage. Yeah, right here.
Everybody kissed his feet, but I refused to. That's why he hated me.
Boom. Just like that, he confesses the ugly truth driving the whole feud, pure envy. But here's the part he missed. Nobody was worshiping MJ for nothing. They respected the man because he absolutely dismantled anybody foolish enough to step in the paint. Jump ahead to May 2020. Thomas gets on the Fox Sports show Speak for Yourself and drops this wild take that Jordan never actually conquered Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. He straight up said
Michael Jordan didn't beat Larry Bird. You showed Michael Jordan going between his legs one time in the highlights, against Larry Bird. And that was the game he got 63.
That's when he dropped 63 on Bird, yes.
The guy is practically trying to edit the history books in real time, casting himself as the lead and shoving Jordan into the background. And don't forget, that sit down with Shannon Sharpe where he doubled down claiming he owned Jordan and that MJ wasn't even a real threat.
Just head to head, I was dominant over him. When our teams met, when you go back and you look at until 91, when I basically had career-ending wrist surgery, my record against him and his team, it really was a competition there.
It is staggering because the stats. The championship banners the finals runs everything on tape flat out. Proves him wrong. That is the tragedy of Isiah Thomas. 30 years later, he is still trying to plant his flag in another man's kingdom. He struts around acting like he was the ultimate boss fight, like he was on the same level. But anybody with eyes back then knew the score. Jordan was not just superior. He completely rewrote the definition of greatness. Scottie Pippen did not let that slide either. He went straight for the throat, calling Thomas salty and unappreciative. Just a guy who cannot bring himself to show Jordan the deference he earned on every hardwood floor across the league.
I find that comment there just hating. I've never seen this guy embrace or thank Michael Jordan for what he's done for the game.
Frankly, it makes you cringe. You have a legend who used to run the Eastern Conference, a man who had his time in the spotlight, now scrambling around years later trying to sell a narrative that the GOAT was overrated. So, yeah, that whole bit about refusing to bow down, it would be comical if it were not so transparent. It encapsulates his entire psychology, hard-headed, resentful, and living in denial. But here's the thing about the league and life in general. What goes around comes around, and Isiah Thomas definitely paid his dues to karma. Now this is where the narrative gets ugly. See, in 1992, barely a year after that infamous walk-off snub at the finals, the NBA assembled the most terrifying roster in sports history. The 1992 U.S. Olympic men's basketball squad, better known as the Dream Team. We are talking all-stars icons, the absolute cream of the crop. Yet one name was glaringly absent: Isiah Thomas. Even with 2 championship rings on his fingers and Chuck Daly the same. Man running the Dream Team calling the shots. On paper, the guy was a lock. 2 titles and multiple all-star nods. But when the list dropped in September of 91 and the final slots got filled in, May of 92, the phone never rang. The official line was that they needed chemistry guys, no drama. Allowed. Guards like John Stockton looked like a safer bet. Cleaner image, less baggage, but that safe bet angle always felt like smoke and mirrors. We all know why he got left on the tarmac. What did people expect? The man had a reputation, and that reputation got his invitation shredded. He had beefed with Every single person who held the keys to that locker room. Magic, Jordan, Pippen. This was not about basketball skills. It was about bad blood, old grudges, and egos. Scottie Pippen didn't even try to hide it. Well, I can't speak for Michael, but no, I did not want him on the team.
Well, I can't speak for Michael, but no, I did not want him on the team.
And while Pippen played coy about speaking for MJ, an audio tape from 2011 surfaced where Jordan allegedly told selection committee member Rod Thorne, simply, "I am not suiting up if Isiah Thomas is on the roster."
They called me to ask me to play. Rod Thorne called me and said, "Rod, I won't play with Isiah Thomas on the team."
And picture that. The king of the era basically telling him, "You cannot sit at this table, but let us look at the numbers." For a second, because the committee actually had a statistical alibi for snubbing Thomas. By 1992, Thomas was putting up career averages of around 19.2 points, 9.3 assists, and 3.6 boards. And Stockton was operating like a surgeon, averaging 14.5 points and 10.5 assists a night. Drexler. He was good for 20 points, 6 boards, and 5 dimes. You even had guys like Jason Kidd and Chris Mullin reliable. Low-maintenance assets. Sure, you could argue stats, but that logic crumbles when you look at the raw talent Thomas brought to the floor. The guy had the resume, just not the friends. Let's call it what it is. He torched too many relationships, and eventually the bill came due. That rejection cut deep. Deep enough that he's still agonizing over it decades. Down the line. 2020, he admits it's the one missing piece. He's still stunned, still carrying that chip on his shoulder, trying to prove he deserved a seat. But the truth is cold. He poured the concrete for the wall that locked him out. So, sure, entertaining. The hypotheticals. Say Isiah makes the roster. Does the dream team drop a game doubtful? You've got Jordan, this Magic, Bird, Malone. That lineup was a nuclear deterrent. But Thomas, he would have brought a different kind of edge. Brawler willing to get his hands dirty to rattle cages both physically and psychologically. Maybe the locker room vibes get toxic. Maybe not. But here's the rub: it stopped being about basketball ability a long time ago. It was about the energy he sucked out of the room. That's why he didn't get the invite. Jump ahead to the year 2020, Michael. Jordan's mythos is carved in stone. The jewelry, the numbers, the history, it's untouchable. Then drops. The Last Dance, that 10-part ESPN saga, pulling back the curtain on the final days of the Bulls. Dynasty. For the fans, it was a victory lap. For Isiah Thomas, it was salt in a wound that had been festering for 30 years. All the narratives he tried to spin, that he was Jordan's equal, the innocent victim in the Dream Team saga, the walk-off disrespect. It was all broadcast in high definition, and Jordan, cool as ice, broke it down with a smirk. The footage showed a Predator dominating, delivering in the clutch, laughing, demanding total submission. Meanwhile, Isiah, who spent a lifetime claiming he was the kryptonite to Jordan's Superman, got pulled back into the glare, looking exactly how history remembers him. Bitter, defensive, and fixated on Jordan's shadow. Right on cue, a few weeks later, he's everywhere. Hitting the interview circuit, podcasts, random media hits. Anywhere there's a microphone. ESPN, NBA TV, Vlad TV Club, Shay Shay, Jalen, and Jacoby, you name. The platform, he was on it. He was on a crusade to convince people that Jordan's legacy was somehow smoke and mirrors, compared to his own. The irony, every time he spoke, he just reinforced the hard truth: he was never in Jordan's weight class. The documentary didn't even have to argue the point. Jordan's resume screamed it. Every time Isiah tried to force his way into the conversation, the counter-argument was playing out in real time. 6 rings, 6 finals MVPs, 5 regular season MVPs, and a level of cultural dominance Isiah can't even comprehend. For MJ, history is written. He built the empire, secured the bag, and moved on. Isiah took every chance to show grace and turned it into grievance. The Last Dance just lit that insecurity up with a floodlight. If you want to get to the core of why Isiah Thomas can't let the Jordan beef die, you have to zoom out. It's not just about the walk-offs, the physical beatdowns, or getting left off the Olympic squad. It cuts deeper. Jordan became everything Isiah desperately wanted to be. The golden child, the global icon, the god of basketball, Jordan, didn't just win games, he owned the culture. Hearts, minds, shoes, billboards, he was ubiquitous. Isiah built his reputation. On being the villain in Detroit, MJ built a solar system around his brand. Now let's talk hard data, because if you want to debate merit, the numbers don't blink. Jordan put up 30.1 points, 6.2 boards, and 5.3 assists a night for his career. Thomas was sitting at 19.2 points and 3.6 rebounds. MJ was a force of nature, and he didn't coast. In the postseason, Jordan dialed it up to 33.4 a game. In the finals, he went 6-0, grabbing every single finals MVP trophy. Thomas snagged 2 rings in 89 and 90, sure, but when he stood toe-to-toe with his Airness, the narrative shifted. Eastern Conference Finals, 1991. Detroit gets broomed 4-zip. Jordan was dropping nearly 30 a night burying daggers, while Thomas resorted to cheap shots. Unable to derail the freight train? That's the gap. And it goes beyond the box score. Look at the swagger, the aura. Jordan didn't just collect wins. He sold the game to the world. The sneakers, the spots, the Jumpman logo, the endless replays. The guy was omnipresent. He didn't just play basketball, he became basketball. Thomas remained a Detroit hero, a regional kingpin, beloved in the city but irrelevant to the wider world. And that reality was real. That kingdom he thought he secured in Detroit. It was slipping through his fingers, and look, this wasn't about checking boxes or counting jewelry. It was about the clutch gene. Jordan didn't just play, he ascended when the stakes were highest. Every buzzer beater, every silken fadeaway, every finals takeover sent a message, I am the summit. But Thomas, the man was elite, but he couldn't sustain that level of suffocating dominance. Mike was a different species. Thomas, even at his absolute peak, was just a great player in a God's world. That's the jagged pill he can't swallow. Every poster, every trophy, every time Jordan shifted the culture, it was a reminder to Isiah that he'd been eclipsed. Not because he lacked skill, but because the world chose Mike. And honestly, you can't fault us for that. Lay. The resumes side by side. Jordan holds 6 finals MVPs, 5 league MVPs, 14. All-Star nods, 10. Scoring titles, 10. First-team All-NBA selections. 10 all-defensive team spots, 2 gold medals, and he captained the Dream Team. Isiah is a global monument. Contrast that with Isiah 1, Finals MVP 12, All-Star appearances, 2 first-team All-NBA selections, 3 all-defensive team, nods, 1 gold medal, and he wasn't on that flight to Barcelona. It's not even a debate. That's why Isiah can't let it go. Mike didn't just beat him on the hardwood, he monopolized the entire atmosphere. The attention, the brand, the adoration. Isiah had grit and rings, but Jordan possessed a legacy superstardom and the keys to the kingdom. Every number, every series, every clip testifies to it. That's why 30 years down the line, the resentment still burns. But here's the bottom line. How do you go to war with a man who was preordained to be the king?